Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator, and welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today, when I was thinking about what topic I would speak on, I thought about, ranking my favorite Star Wars ships. Spaceships. But I realized that would take a long time because there are so many amazing and iconic and memorable spaceships in the Star Wars universe. But today, I'm going to celebrate, and I say that in quotes, the vehicles of the Empire, the Galactic Empire. There has always been an appeal, a strange sort of appeal to the might of the Empire. And for lack of a better word, they're cool toys. Or it's cool toys, I should say. And I can't help but think, and go with me on this, that it is akin to our morbid fascination with the Nazis. Now, the Empire is based in some part on the Nazi regime, a fascist regime, came to power after blaming one particular group for a thing that didn't really happen. Came to power and used an iron fist throughout the galaxy and got lots of people to jump on board. And of course, they had all the cool toys, uniforms, cool equipment, cool vehicles and spaceships and weapons, ruled over by a creepy yet charismatic dictator and some of his circle of like-minded folks. There is an appeal there to the Galactic Empire. And the reason I mention the Nazis is that I know for myself there is a morbid fascination with their culture. And you can see why people would be sucked in by those kind of regimes. It's hypnotic in a way. So there is that morbid sense of fascination that I feel. And I think that that's probably by design that the Empire has that same kind of appeal as the Nazis. Of course, we know that both groups are evil, but you can see why people would be very intrigued by it. Okay, so let's talk about some of their neat vehicles. So first off, when we think of the Empire, probably the most iconic image is the Imperial Star Destroyers. That wedge shape, everything very angular, gray, very uniform. Those are probably the most iconic vehicles of the Empire. I've always been fascinated by the inside of a Star Destroyer. Now, this isn't just about spaceships, but any vehicle or building. For some reason, my mind always kind of wants to imagine what they look like, on the inside. Now, I'm going to commit a bit of blasphemy and mention Star Trek. So someone has made or is working on using the Unreal Engine, making a model of the Enterprise D and making it so that you can explore every nook and cranny of that ship. I watched some of it already. It's fascinating. I've always had a fascination with that kind of book. And I would love a similar thing with the Star Destroyer. To have every part of the Star Destroyer mapped out. And kind of take a digital tour through a Star Destroyer. And that's probably true of most vehicles. So we see that as the most iconic image. Death Star is certainly another iconic image, which is certainly just a fascinating book. Just that round ball of death. And of course, TIE fighters and their signature sound. You know, that, I can't even do it. You know, that Maud Garrett can. If you look up Maud Garrett, she can do it. Those are the most probably iconic images of the Empire. Now, the Star Destroyer, I love the look of. TIE fighters they're okay. And the Death Star is kind of cool, but it's Star Destroyers that really do it for me. Okay, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to come back and talk more about my favorite Imperial vehicles after this message about our sponsor. Hello there, this is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from your podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the Force be with you. Okay, I'm back. Now, no discussion of the Galactic Empire would be complete without discussing the Super Star Destroyer. In particular, Lord Vader's Super Star Destroyer, the Executor. You know, it's crazy. I thought Star Destroyers were cool. I think the Super Star Destroyer is even cooler. That dagger look, that knife look, like it just cut you. It's amazing. I'm looking at it. It's almost like it's got a city on the top of it. You ever notice that? You see that a little bit in Return of the Jedi. All those structures on the top of the Super Star Destroyer are almost like a building. It's pretty wild. And I gotta say, the special effects work for the Battle of Endor is second to none. It is extraordinary. It is an Oscar well deserved, and holds up to this day. And if you notice, the only thing George Lucas really did in the special editions would add that explosive ring coming out of the Death Star. When it blows up, that's it. Everything else is left as, with a few touch-ups to make the it not look so to hide the lines, where you could see the model lines, or not lines, but there's a whole technical thing that I don't really understand. It's being cleaned up, and that's pretty much all it needed because it's perfect as is. The Superstar Destroyer is fascinating. No, I don't really. TIE fighters aren't really my thing. No, I got to admit, my favorite Star Wars game, period, one of my favorite games ever, was the LucasArts Flight Simulator TIE Fighter. First time, to my knowledge, that players got to play as the Empire. And like I said, that fascination with the Empire is there. And I loved playing in TIE Fighters, TIE Bombers, TIE Advanced, TIE Defenders, Assault Gunboats. Truly extraordinary stuff, but they've never been like the ships that I say that's my favorite, except one. And I mentioned it. But it's never a ship that we've seen on screen in a movie. It is canon now because of Star Wars Rebels, and that is the TIE Defender. TIE Defender is a TIE fighter with basically 3 wings. There's 6 laser cannons, one on each tip. There are 2 tips per wing. And it has shields and hyperdrive, and it's much more advanced than the standard TIE fighter, and I'm so glad that it was brought into canon. In fact, that is the project that Grand Admiral Thrawn is working on. That's very interesting, is Thrawn, the tactical genius, he opposes the Death Star. He thinks the Death Star is a waste of resources. He thinks the Death Star is rather useless and needless. So he is focusing his efforts on the TIE Defender through the Imperial factories on the planet Lothal. Truly extraordinary. Other Imperial vehicles I love. I've never liked the AT-ST chicken walkers. They're not really my thing. But the AT-ATs, or ADAPs, all-terrain assault transports, that are seen in The Empire Strikes Back, and we see one in Return of the Jedi. Those are extraordinary. They're impractical, sure. But I love them because they look so cool. I like the Imperial speeder bikes. I do like the Scout Trooper. The Scout Trooper armor, by the way. Imperial shuttles. I absolutely love Imperial shuttles. They look so cool. And it's just the Empire has got so many extraordinary vehicles that I absolutely love. And it's just extraordinary what we get in Star Wars. And like I said, the might of the Empire is alluring. It really is. And due in no small part to the look of the spaceships. So yet again, Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, TIE Defenders, and AT-ATs, and Imperial shuttles are my favorite vehicles. In no particular order, but I love all 5 of those. I don't think it's cheating to say Star Destroyer and Super Star Destroyer, because they look different. And there's just something about the angular looks, the uniform colors, You notice with the rebels and later the resistance that they're made up of sort of a motley crew of spaceships of all different sizes, colors, shapes. And the Empire is very uniform, so I think what it's telling us is the Empire is about conformity. And the good guys, the rebels and the resistance, are about individuality. But you can see the allure of the Empire because of their vehicles, because of their charismatic yet nasty leader. Truly extraordinary that we find ourselves so attracted to them. But, as I said, with some of their cool spaceships and vehicles, you can see why. So those are my thoughts on celebrating, quote unquote, the vehicles of the Galactic Empire. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.